Well, for this meeting, we have the opportunity ahead to elect a chair and vice chair. So some of these duties and opportunities will transfer. But I'd like to welcome everybody to the Affordable Housing Review Board meeting for July. And thank you all for being here. Let's see, go ahead. So we're at call to order and roll call. And I'm Sarah Gooding, I'm the real property, I'm sorry, my title always throws me. Real property section manager. And then this is the meeting of the Affordable Housing Review Board. And so, oops, I'm sorry, scooted right on the head. So I'd like to call roll, Miranda Pinner, Savon, Collier, and it looks like Anthony is not necessarily here. John, Valerie, and Stacy.
Here.
And I believe Brad Snap is participating online.
He's having access issues, but he's trying to get connected.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. Okay. And I sent the board out the meeting minutes a few days ago, and has everyone had an opportunity to review? Any suggested changes or corrections? If there are none, entertain a motion to approve.
I think there is, I should. There at a specific time and date for this. I think this meeting should be set by the members. There's the time.
Well, I saw it in the time was.
Yes, I think we had discussed a potential time and date, and we were going to finalize that with bylaws this meeting. It's my understanding Brad has joined us now. Brad, can you hear us?
Yep.
Wonderful, thank you. So if you want to confirm that as our time in the minutes, I can, or we can set that time this meeting.
Well, just again, made from law. It's not that this level of detail is probably a little bit more than most minutes that you'll see from city boards. So it's definitely like legally sufficient to these minutes without that discussion per se. But if we do want to include it, obviously we can as well with kind of but yeah.
Any other comments, or would we have a motion to approve?
I would motion. I think we were going to set the frequency of this meeting. Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed, same sign? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Logan. So at our last meeting, we had several of our staff had the chance to do introductions, but we had one staff who was on vacation and another who was still to join us. And so I wanted to give two of our staff members an opportunity to just introduce themselves briefly and share about how they'll be interacting with this particular board.
Hi, I'm Lance Dixon. I've been with City Housing Department for about 4 years now. Previous to coming to the Land Bank and Affordable Housing Fund, I was in compliance, and I worked with the home program, both the Home 80 and HDLP programs.
I'm Jacqueline Beck. This is week 4 for me. My background is mortgage and nonprofits. I worked for NeighborWorks prior to being here. So I've about 18 years of experience with it, mortgage and processing stuff.
As part of the city housing.
And so we're excited to have both here. Lance and Roger are both program specialists, specifically with the Affordable Housing Fund and the Wichita Land Bank. And Jacqueline is a program specialist with our home programs. Home is a direct entitlement federal funding source targeted toward the building of affordable units. And so all three of them do a lot of backing work toward the work that this board will review. And so one of the things we had discussed last month and wanted to come back to this month was the Affordable Housing Review Board bylaws. Nate did a fantastic job operationalizing the ordinance into bylaws. And then within the bylaws, there's also guidance for the election of a chairperson, chairperson. And so I had a quick overview, but I also open the floor to Nate if he has anything else to add to it.
Yeah, and just to make clear that the one note that we really had from the last meeting, and not to foreclose discussion, happy to make any edits that anyone was thinking of, was on number 6 here on page 2. The highlighting is that at least meet quarterly, regular meetings held monthly, which kind of seemed to be what we were talking last time, though, again, what folks were thinking when we came back, with regular meetings held the final Monday of each month at 4 here at City Hall. So if that's cool, we don't need to vote on that specifically. That can just be part of the bylaws discussion. Happy to answer any other questions as well. The only other thing I'd note is, weirdly, the bylaws only need to be approved technically by a majority vote. Though moving forward, any amendments will be a 2/3 vote. That's neither here nor there. More, it's like we probably want to get everybody on the same page with bylaws today, but if we have thoughts, edits, happy to do that too. And we can still take action. I'm not sure if much needs to be taken today on any particular agenda items, but the board is always able to take action by majority vote, even without bylaws.
And so in reviewing the bylaws that Nate had drafted, the majority of the verbiage really closely reflects the formational ordinance for this board. Key items include the outlining roles and duties of officers. It outlines standards for agenda preparation. It clarifies the rules surrounding forum for the board and when we can vote and conduct business. And then the one item that Nate outlined is that we wanted to ensure that the board clarifies its proposed meeting time and frequency within the adoption of the bylaws. And so in reviewing the bylaws, are there any additional questions?
Without a president yet, it is a little bit weird, but I think at this point, it's sort of, if someone wants to move to adopt the bylaws as currently drafted, we can do that. Not to, if we have edits as well, you can frame your motion that way. But kind of without a president, we kind of directed ourselves. So that is the weird part. If anybody would like to do that, we can move forward in that manner.
Just as this is a board under formation that comes from council, is that oftentimes there will be a recommended motion drafted by staff. That does not mean that's the motion that the board has to use, but sometimes it's helpful to have that just to get verbiage put together and recorded effectively. And so if there are no questions or suggested changes, then we could adopt the recommended motion. I do think one thing I heard from the board in the previous meeting was that perhaps that 1 hour felt a little bit short. And so this would be the time to consider that eventual starting time, whether 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 3:30. I don't think 2 hours is going to routinely be needed.
We do stay here late sometimes for like golf meeting as well. So we don't say 5 o'clock in the bylaws either. So there is a touch of flexibility, but that's more Bill's calendar management, I guess, and keeping things clear for your evenings.
Should we see what's in here? Maybe times that you guys just don't have that you might not need. Should we address in here, or have we addressed in here how we would go about canceling?
Yeah, and we don't need to. We can just say we're not having one, I think, that month. And I think that's kind of, I would hinge that more on that first sentence, the board shall meet at least quarterly. So we might then need to meet at least once quarterly, even if a couple, but I think that's pretty reasonable in the responsibilities here. But again, up to you all.
Sarah?
I personally like the 3 o'clock. I make a motion we adopt these with the times. Regular meetings, if necessary, to be held.
I think Brad had a comment.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, what is the liability of action we take?
Brad, we're having a difficult time hearing you. Would you be willing to repeat?
I was wondering what the liability, if any, is for the board on any action that we take.
Oh, liability on the board of any action that we take?
Yes.
I mean, not saying anything like 1,000,000% or whatever, but I really can't imagine a scenario where there is liability for individual board members based on the decisions here on the board. Generally, like just speaking generally, city government officials are not liable really individually for the decisions that they make in their official responsibilities. Second, this is kind of a little different too, where it is, I would argue, this is an advisory recommending kind of board. Ultimate decisions are made by a different decision maker. So I think that would, beyond the general principle that I don't think boards and city employees are responsible for the actions of like the sovereign. I think this has an added layer, which is a little like most of our boards that are a bit more recommendations, advisory, but then the decisions are by somebody else. So that's not to say the big step back is like individuals can't do criminal activity as part of the board and it doesn't insulate you from that sort of stuff. But doing your responsibilities as a board member, that's what you're here to do, functioning as part of the city, basically.
Thanks, Nate.
So and technically, we do have a motion on the table still, but we're looking for a second. I believe with 3 p.m. Instead of the 4 p.m. that's in the.
I second.
Oh, sweet.
Was that Anthony or Brad? Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Motion carries. And then within this, I also wanted to bring back the opportunity. The goal is to have a chair and vice chairperson who will carry basically the presiding at the meetings. And once those positions are elected, then I will step back into more of the secretarial duties. And I had sent the board a summary pulled from the bylaws that outlines what the responsibilities of those positions would be. But we also wanted to review them again in the meeting. Basically to say the board chairperson would preside at all meetings of the board and decide on questions of order. We do have backing from the law department to assist with those. So you're not alone in that. The board chair would sign, execute, act, and deliver for the board all contracts, warrants, and documents. The board chair would designate meeting dates when regular meeting dates fall on legal holidays. And so that would probably be in consultation with me or another staff member to discuss when those would be. Similarly, the board chair is the one who calls special meetings, again, likely in consultation with staff and then we can take care of the administrative side of things. And then also the board chair would reasonably limit the length or number of public presentations. So if you have somebody who is speaking well beyond a reasonable amount of time, that the chair would be responsible for maintaining order within the meeting. And then the vice chair basically performs all those duties when the board chair is unable to. And so I tried to provide that a few days in advance so that you would have a chance to think about whether yourself or whether another member of the board seemed like somebody who would carry those duties well on behalf of the board. And so with that, would there be any nominations, either self or of another board member for chairperson?
I nominate myself, Anthony Gallardo, for chair.
You did not make the first speaker still.
Just realize it's a lifetime appointment.
Sadly, not even close.
I think that's outlined in the bylaws, actually.
Yeah, maximum term not to exceed 1 year, and then you can't have it more than twice in a row too, but really just to keep people moving around on the board.
Second.
Oh, and yeah, this will be a little bit different. That's great though. We're getting in the in the process and everything. But yeah, we won't need to second this if there are any other nominations. That's what we're looking for. Otherwise, then there's it's pretty, you'll see there's not a ton about the election process in the bylaws, but that's to keep it flexible for us depending on how many.
The nominations, we elect Anthony by majority vote.
And are there any other nominations first, just to make sure? Yeah.
With no other nominations, would this be a consensus or would this be a vote?
We can vote, but again, like really, it's because there's no contest or whatever, we don't need to, but I think as our first act, like, there's some symbolic value to it for sure, yeah.
Well, all in favor of Anthony serving as chair this year, please vote aye or raise your right hand. Or
Aye.
all opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations, Anthony. With that, do we have any nominations for a vice chairperson?
Nominate.
So any other nominations, or are you okay with that? Okay. It is sort of your choice still, right? So even with the nomination, but
So all in favor of nominating Siobhan for vice chairperson?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
you might want to clarify that was,
Was that,
I think that was a yes.
was that an opposition? We
Yes,
had-
for me.
It was a delay? Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
It's a little drama.
Always like to make sure the legal record reflects correctly.
Yeah, we're good.
Sorry.
You've been sworn in.
Oh, and have you been sworn in?
Yeah, I think that's what.
That was actually, that's a good call.
They have before the meeting and for some reason they don't have anything in the file. Yeah.
Okay, and I had,
And Sasha was off today, and so tomorrow.
So,
Is that effective? It doesn't-
well, okay, so technically you won't be the one qualification is you have to be a sworn member of the board to be vice chair. This motion is still effective, I think, once, it can basically be triggered. If everybody's okay with this interpretation of it, triggered once you're sworn in. So then we don't have to do anything else. That's a really good point. But maybe just note in the minutes or something. That'd be great.
I am so sorry. I had reached out to coordinate that last week. And I'm sorry that it hadn't worked out yet.
Okay, Jamie came down and spoke.
Okay, great. So you'll be the vice chair effective upon your swearing in. Congratulations. You know, it's kind of a little messy to start something new, but it's really exciting what's ahead for this board. And so actually that's a great segue on into one of the key items on today's agenda, which is to discuss the Affordable Housing Fund and proposed program plan updates that we hope to take to the council here later in August. I want to credit Sally and Logan for a lot of the back work on this, and they've done quite a bit of research and building on this proposed plan, and then a number of changes that I'll outline here have happened that we wanted to share with the board before taking it forward to council. And so the history of this particular project is that 72.4 million in American Rescue Plan Act, which we call ARPA, state and then state and local fiscal recovery funds, so SLFRF, were allocated to the city of Wichita to offset COVID impacts. During that, with such a large allocation, the city conducted community outreach and community engagement to determine what were key priorities for the use of those funds. And throughout that engagement process, housing topped the list over and over. And so with that, the council allocated $5 million for the creation of the Affordable Housing Fund. And this board was created in the same time frame, recognizing that we really need a board oversight to be part of the integrity of that process of allocating those funds. Within this opportunity and discussion, it became really clear that the council has placed a high priority on these funds benefiting affordable home ownership. Now, that's not exclusive. It doesn't mean we can't do work with affordable rentals, but home ownership is a key value and goal for the council. And so as we dug deeper into the guidance from the U.S. Treasury accompanying the ARPA funds, we found out that was going to be extremely difficult. The ARPA funding, when used for housing, required a 20-year affordability period. And so within our arena, we have lots of affordability periods for lots of funding sources. Typically with programs such as Home 80, we require that it be affordable for 10 years. And so we will monitor to make sure that the money that's been paid in is utilized to benefit low and moderate income households for 10 years. But as we started doing the math on what that looked like for 20 years, with the stipulation that if it was not serving that purpose, all the development subsidies had to be repaid, we realized we were functionally holding people underwater for more than 15 years. And so with that, we had to step back and say, you know, what are we really going to do with this? And so early this year, staff met with nonprofit partners to discuss what sorts of options or ideas they might have to make this work for some of the intended purposes. And really, it was a challenging discussion, a really good bringing together of partners. But the more we looked, we said, I don't know if we can do this for the intended goal. And so what ended up happening was that the city looked at its expenses related to COVID, was able to identify other qualifying expenses for ARPA funds, and then was able to provide that $5 million for the Affordable Housing Fund without restrictions. And so without the federal restrictions, staff have worked to align this program with other comparable programs that we manage so that there are accountability restrictions, so that the program is equitable with other programs that we deliver, and also so that there are monitoring periods to ensure the money is used as intended. So the plan still anticipates the strategic use of our public housing units as we sell our single-family homes, and also anticipates targeted reinvestment in the areas surrounding those units. And so there will be a chance for questions. I know this is a lot of information all at once. And so a recap of the program that we delivered last month is that really the goal of the Affordable Housing Fund is to improve the quality of existing housing stock while we expand affordable housing options and stabilize neighborhoods, especially in Wichita's core areas. 5 million remains the number that's been allocated for that fund, and we will still be prioritizing projects that leverage the public housing stock. That includes not that all units will be eligible for this fund, but we are working through an application to dispose of 352 single-family units throughout the city. And so within the updates, we've always intended that the plan would be accessed by eligible users through a request for proposals process. And at this point in time, we have 3 key program options that are part of the program that's being presented. And that includes single-family renovation or rehabilitation of existing housing, either renovation or rehabilitation of existing housing, and that can be for home buyers or renters. And that would be really a new component. We don't currently have a number of programs that address renovation of existing units for, especially for renters. We also have proposed home rehab for existing low-income homeowners, and that is comparable to a program we already deliver. And so I'll share a little bit more about the differences there in a moment. And then we also have proposed new construction, and that again could be for homeowners or for renters, which again aligns with existing programs, but allows us to focus these funds in these target areas. And so overarching goals that have stayed the same since we originally presented a draft to council last summer include accountability for affordable outcomes. In no way do we want to waste the money that's been allocated. There are still some revolving fund mechanisms within this. Originally, the goal and the hope was that as the public housing units were sold, those proceeds would funnel back in and create a replenishing fund, which would have been amazing, but we did not get permission to do that from HUD. Those proceeds must be used for a designated purpose. And so they don't get to revolve back in that particular way, but some of the program components do create some revolving funds. So this is somewhat sustainable. Again, the use remains focused on the established central area and qualified census tracts, and continues the strategic investment in existing housing stock. Key changes that we're proposing: in the original plan draft, we had housing service activities, which could include homeowner counseling or other kind of supplemental services. And those will now be accounted for in the required pro forma from developers as they issue requests or as they respond to requests for proposals. We've also changed the forgiveness clauses because originally, as these were federal funds, they had to be fully expended by 2026. And so our original forgiveness clauses anticipated very quick forgiveness periods. Now we have the opportunity to focus really on sustaining, especially home ownership. We never want to subsidize flipping of homes. We want to subsidize if a homeowner requests funds, helping them to remain in that unit for a significant amount of time. We're also able to clarify some of our programs that we're going to require overlap, such as I think on either the renovation of existing structures for new home buyers or renters or the building new structures will require partnering with the Home 80 program, which provides down payment assistance and also introduces affordability periods and monitoring into the mix. Similarly, on the mutually exclusive programs, the city has a home repair program already in existence. And so we will clarify that we cannot layer affordable housing fund dollars with home repair dollars. We want maximum benefit. And so we're not going to allow all the programs to be stacked indefinitely. We also have incorporated changes in the home rehabilitation program to align with program updates that we're working on in home repair that actually allow us to do greater benefit in each unit. And so we're really excited about that. We've added conflict of interest clauses for developers will need to sign and signify that there is no conflict of interest between them and the ultimate beneficiaries. And we've removed verbiage anticipating sustaining funds from the sale of public housing units. And so those are some of the key updates. And so with that, I know that was a lot of information. What questions do you have?
Just want to clarify, this fund in particular is only accessed by developers. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. Yes, this will not be one that members of the public can access directly. They'll have to access it either through a for or nonprofit developer, which I think are termed qualifying users within this document. The other thing that we have proposed internally is that the funds for rehabilitation actually would remain managed by our staff. And that allows us to check for duplication. And so in that case, we technically would not be a developer, but it would remain that they would have to apply to an eligible user for those funds.
Go for sale to these developers.
Sally and I are looking at each other.
For the two friendly areas in particular, those applications are already in HUD's hands. And our first application is still in HUD's hands. They're hoping to get us the approval and execute on that. And we believe those subsequent applications will go much faster now that we've, you know. No, I'm not going to will.
Whole process, and I just.
Yeah, so we're hoping by, this fall that we're gonna have those being issued, because once we get the approval, some of the houses are occupied, so we'll start, we have to give them their 30 days notice. They're Uniform Relocation Act and start working to relocate them, so start advertising, putting together the RFP. So for those ones that are gonna layer with this fund, the way we're envisioning it now, we'll make units available. A developer could come in and say, I want these 10 units. I'd like this dollar amount in subsidy in accordance with the plan. And if they're thinking of doing rental, they're required to request a project-based housing contract, which is what allows us to ensure that they stay long-term affordable. It's us in to inspect, make sure the clients the tenants income qualified, et cetera. So they'll be able to apply for all 3 items. If they're doing home ownership, obviously no PPP contract, but through that RFP process. And then those are the applications that you'll be reviewing, right? And deciding which applications to fund.
That was my other question, is if developers are good, like a onesie twosie, or if they're not going to be projected to purchase
Honestly, you know, when we the first 43, which I think will be the first one that goes out, I would not be surprised if someone comes in and goes, I want all 43 and I want, you know, $40,000 times 43 units.
Yeah.
Would not surprise me at all.
Okay.
But then I wouldn't be surprised if we give people coming in with, I want these 2 or 3. And one thing that's kind of nice in that first grouping of 43 is all of the 3 bedrooms are the same exact, they were built at the same time, same floor plan. The 4 bedrooms are all the same floor plan, which I'll give them. So you may see someone coming in going, I want all the 4 bedrooms because they're all the same. I can do one scope, copy paste, review. So I do think we'll see a wide variety of applications.
I would also note, it's not in the PowerPoint, but on page 7 of the plan draft, you can see a couple of maps of our pilot groups, 2AI and 2AII. The 2AI is approximately 25th and 26th Streets, Minnesota Ashen Pyatt area, and you can see it's a very concentrated area. So a lot of advantage. I mean, these are strategic areas for reinvesting in because they're so concentrated and such an opportunity to help set the tone for what the future of those neighborhoods looks like. And then the 2AII is in the southwest Wichita, in the Haskell and St. Clair area. And again, very concentrated, higher numbers of bedrooms. So these are fantastic opportunities to rehabilitate homes and then get them into affordable rental and affordable home ownership opportunities.
We submitted these applications back on July 4th. They tell us about 2 months. So probably in the beginning of September, we'll hear back on those applications. And then within that, we are required to provide a timetable by which we'll start relocating residents, completing relocation, and then executing contracts for people. So basically getting under contract. And then we put in there that the actual removal action, so the closing on the homes, which takes 120 days from the date that we receive back application. So I would say late fall or early winter, we could expect these homes available on the market.
Yes.
They would have to be sold only to for-profit or not-profit. So an individual using HUD's own 203K residential rehab program could not apply.
It's not likely you're gonna find many folks who have that. That's part of the challenge, is every one of these needs substantial rehabilitation and don't necessarily have the capacity to qualify to be able to manage a subsidy grant. And so that's why we see the path really going through. They could absolutely get with one of the developer partners to assist them through the process, but it is much more complicated than the average homeowner could walk in and just be like, hey, I want to buy this. I want you to give me $40,000 and I'm going to meet Davis-Bacon section, you know, all of the legal requirements around dealing with the home fund street.
No, it also
Yeah, as being very reasonable.
when we're doing, oh, I was going to say,
Left over after our process that we could look at all those directly off.
They would be just so not taking subsidy money with them.
But did the original 37 that already did go to the MLS, or it's that?
They have not. We still are waiting on one. That's the one that the office is telling us we think they're going to get us the approval.
Okay, first round of that doesn't apply to.
That those do not apply here. Those are all so scattered. They're just getting going through something else.
Yep. Okay, and so then my next question was, with that said, with the partners, the for-profit, nonprofit, are these only for developers, or is there opportunity for contractors, or is there certain criteria that you have?
They're going to have the experience criteria. That's going to be part of the RFP. They could apply. How they answer that question and get points related to capacity and experience could be challenging. Now, there are contractors who have that. There are some that do not. And that's why that's the beauty of an RFP, right? Technically, anybody could apply. You can have individual homeowners, people wanting to buy a home apply. But once we're looking at the scoring criteria, it's going to be really challenging for them to score well enough to actually have it happen.
And I did want to clarify that each group of homes, we're dividing the homes into several groups along the way. Each will be sold under different circumstances and criteria. So for example, this original 37 scattered site units will just be offered on the market. So we're not trying to layer a lot of subsidies into those homes. We believe that just whatever the fair appraisal value will be the floor for what offers can be received. And so those won't be eligible for the Affordable Housing Fund. It is designed to really target these cluster neighborhoods and then to see what happens after that. So the first grouping of 37 will not be. The next group, 66 total, I believe we have 43 and 23 between those two sections. Those will be the first groups that are eligible for this. We've also designated a max of 40,000 per unit for rehab of existing structures. And so I think Sally we had the math at a recent presentation, but that alone, if everyone applied for the maximum funding, that would be almost half of this fund that would be expended right then. We have some other cluster groups that are going to be coming up in later groupings. We also have some other groupings that will be sold that are not eligible for this again. And a lot of it just kind of depends on situation, neighborhood characteristics, and things like that.
I'm sorry, go ahead, John. I was just gonna ask this, the RFP scoring, is that scoring gonna be completed prior to getting to us here at the board, or are we doing?
We'll do a cursory and give you beforehand.
But you guys will actually rank.
That's just to help you. So our staff will go through, make sure everything that was required under the RFP is there. I mean,
And we'll only bring completed applications for your review. We're not gonna bring an application that still have outstanding.
And we will have specific criteria to look at to be able to rank them. How are the houses targeted? Like go to the city of Wichita website, look up AFP, and then this is where developers and individuals pick their property. I'm just from a real estate side, I think about showings and how that's all
So
coordinated.
the city's real estate department has already created postcards that are going to go to every registered realtor in the state.
Gotcha.
That tells them, hey, here's the link with, I think they set a QR code on it. That will bring you to a website that they've devised. Now that's for those first 37, we're just being sold out. We'll again notify interested parties when the RFP hits for each.
And that's not a conflict of interest for me to like put it on my social media. Look at this new.
Yeah.
They're also creating like one page flyers that have a couple pictures of each of the features such as size, number of bedrooms, age. There's also other information on an interactive mapping tool that real estate has. We actually think real estate will be our IT department. It'll let them know if it did a floodplain, when was the last time the roof, the HVAC was replaced, and we love that.
Yeah. Okay, great.
And so I'm sorry, John, yes.
Watch the city council workshop last Tuesday, development housing affordability. There was some indication given as the offered on the multiple service.
Well, they had a conversation about whether or not that would be necessary. They furthered that conversation since then. I don't know that they have come to a decision on.
I talked with someone in real estate services on Friday, and I don't believe that they're paying broker. That said, that could change. But at this time.
Well, the indication to me was it's going to be a real effort to do it. That's my interpretation of the meeting.
I'm just saying conversations that have happened since that meeting. I think it was more information provided to the council members on the postcards to every realtor in the state.
Actually, staff did not do it.
Well, why didn't say that? No, we didn't say that, right? But we do also look at our ability, we to bring in another party that doesn't already have relationships with the existing residents, the programs and the requirements, is a little bit challenging. Sure.
I kind of think the whole real estate industry has impact to know the city pretty well. I can't think of anyone any better to market these.
And that's why every single realtor in the state will get a postcard telling them that where to go to get details on every single unit that we're making available.
Office. But key factor for, I'm retired from this, so I don't do it. It strikes me that we're missing opportunities. Market penetration. Offices.
One other thing on a previous question that I did want to note is that if a contractor wanted to participate in this, they would be able to partner with another entity with that proven development experience. So this is not shutting anyone else, but as Sally said, we are looking for qualified entities with that expertise in navigating the HUD requirements. And so there would be partnership opportunities beyond just a known developer. And so with that discussion, I want to see if the board would be willing to consider recommending the program plan to the council as submitted. And actually, that would be external to the program plan. That would be fall more within the topic of the sale of the public housing units, which this plan doesn't directly address.
When are you meeting with council, the city council?
The proposed date right now would be to have this on the council's agenda for August 15th. To do so, we would actually need to turn around council documents by Wednesday of this week. If we don't have it done in time for August 15th, if the board has substantial concerns or things it would like to incorporate, we would bring it back to the board again in August, and we would try for a September council date.
And just saying, if there was any delay, that doesn't delay anything going on with HUD, applications to HUD or anything.
And my only concern, Savon, just since you have not been sworn in, I was going to see legally if you're allowed to make a motion or to vote.
No, probably not yet. But here,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, yeah, that's quite. Do we have anyone that would like to make the motion? Otherwise, I can do that in a second, and we can note that we felt a certain way about stuff too. But yeah, we'll just make it more official the next time too. Yeah.
More official every single meeting.
Yeah.
Have a chance to visit with our city council people.
Is there a second?
Was that a second?
The motion dies for the last second.
Making sure there was no other.
Yeah, Anthony Gallardo seconded. I don't know, there's a delay, sorry.
Second.
So is there any further discussion on the motion to reconsider the Affordable Housing Fund program plan updates at the September meeting? Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to reconsider at the September meeting versus kind of the recommended motion. The motion now is for pushing it to the September meeting. All those in favor say aye. And those opposed say nay. Okay. And then we have abstentions as well.
How many abstentions?
Sorry, say that again.
So the motion on the table now is to push this to consider in September. So delay consideration of this plan by the board for approval until the September meeting. That's been moved and seconded, and we'll reconsider reconsider. So anyone who is in favor of that motion, please vote aye.
Aye. Aye.
So those opposed, nay? Okay, and abstentions on the motion? Okay, so it seems that this will be reconsidered at the September meeting for that consideration.
Yes, and so we will actually bring it back to this board at the end of August for consideration and we'll
Yeah.
schedule it with council for September. Just to make sure, I have yes as John, Stacy, Brad, and Anthony. And I did not have anyone voted opposed or abstaining, and I do want to make sure that the record reflects correctly.
Prior to this meeting, I request that have something more detailed than what's said here.
Absolutely, and I believe I also had submitted, and I also am making a diligent effort to share documents with the board ahead of time so that you have the opportunity to review and to bring in questions. And you're welcome to address any questions ahead of time to me, as a staff member, or to other staff, or to bring those questions to the meeting.
Within your governing body.
Yeah. Okay, and once again,
I'm sorry?
You talk to a council member.
Yeah. Not within, right.
I did want to confirm votes for Miranda or Valerie, I believe. Miranda, was your vote a yes or no? Okay. And Valerie, what was your vote?
Yes.
Thank you so much. With the split vote, let's make sure the record reflects correctly. And so with that, we have concluded our regular agenda items. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, we'll go aye.
All in favor to adjourn? Going to say that. Thank you so much.
You're very much. Thank you.